Gonna ask the question about black wrestlers in AEW. It's obviously a topic that's been rolling around for the past few however long. For those that don't know about the situation with Big Swole, she is a black wrestler who was contracted to AEW. She wasn't released. Her contract expired and it wasn't renewed. Technically, she was released because it was about to expire, but basically they didn't come to an agreement. So rather than wait out the rest of the contract, which wasn't long, they let it expire together, mutual agreement. But technically it wasn't. So after that, she basically put out a statement, and she was obviously discussing about the different, or the views, or the conflicting views, or the controversial views in regards to diversity, in particular in AEW. And Tony Khan, amongst other people, basically shot her down, or was in defense of him when he shot her down. And I wanted to have the discussion because I myself probably have some controversial views, which I know some black people will probably stone me for. But at the moment, I feel like I don't reckon AEW has that much of a leg to stand on now. And that's not just in regards to what Tony Khan was mentioning before. I'm talking about in general with some of the black stars they brought in. When I say they don't have a leg to stand on, I mean in regards to promoting a black champion. So, for those people that don't know my views in regards to AEW and black wrestlers in AEW, because I may have discussed it with Diamond, I can't even remember anymore, because I know I've had this conversation with a few people. And again, Diamond, if you want to come through, it's up to you. If not, you can just talk to me through chat. It's not an issue. But yeah, basically, like other people, I've been championing pushing black wrestlers in AEW. However, a lot of people have been arguing, oh yeah, there's no black champions in AEW, or to this day they still haven't really pushed any black champions or black wrestlers. I agree that they haven't pushed black wrestlers enough in AEW, and I agree that they probably haven't pushed them I won't say at all. That's not fair, but not enough. And I do feel that AEW could have done a better job with doing that, right? Now, I'm not saying, yeah, you have to leave the past alone. But since it hasn't happened, since these wrestlers haven't been pushed, what's done is done, right? We can't now look at the past and look at the wrestlers that haven't been pushed and just put them now in the spotlight, because they haven't been pushed. Yeah, so it's not gonna be fair. It's not gonna make sense to just pluck this wrestler from obscurity and put them into the limelight. Plus, as well, they've got a record system. So if the wrestlers' records are bad, I reckon the TNT championship people can still go for with not a great record, but the AEW title, you need to have a good record to go for that. Sorry. So a lot of them haven't been pushed enough to go for the AEW title. Past is the past. So from this point forward, push them and do what you can to push them properly, right? We know it can be done because they've done it with all the big stars that have come in. They've done it with Adam Cole. They've done it with CM Punk. They've done it with Daniel Bryan. They've done it with Jon Moxley. But these are all established stars anyway. But if we're looking at the homegrown stars, they've done it with MJF. They've done it with Darby Allin. They've done it with Sammy Guevara. Yeah, they've taken some L's, but they've still been pushed to the point where they're credible, at least for the TNT title. So I'm looking at the fact that they're able to push some of these stars. But when you look at some of the black stars, right? Firstly, it's false to say that they don't push any black stars, because where you've got some black stars that are brilliant and not really being pushed, your Lee Moriarty's, your Jay Lethals, which I'm gonna get onto, your Will Hobbs, you haven't got that many black stars anyway that they can push, which is a whole other issue in itself. But on top of that, you've got Jade Cargill, who they have pushed and is green. All these wrestlers I've mentioned are very good wrestlers. I'm not saying Jade Cargill is not good, right? But she's got more of a star quality, more of a star presence, but she's still very green. As wrestling skills go, she's pretty green still, and she's been really good at firing back at all the people that have said she's green, but you can't turn around and say to somebody that you're not green when you've been, pardon me, when you've been wrestling, you've only wrestled 27 matches or 27 TV matches, then you are green. Whether or not you're green but you're still pretty good, or whether or not you're green and not as good, you're still green. Because you haven't had that many matches in comparison to somebody who's 100 of matches. But the fact is, she's still been pushed to the moon and she still has a title. So it's false to say that they're not pushing any black wrestlers, right? And people can argue and say, "Oh, it's only one." I get that argument, but the fact is, they've still pushed one, and they've pushed her to the moon. Even when the argument would suggest that you shouldn't really push her because there's other women wrestlers that are probably streaks ahead of her in regards to ability. Having said that, there are black stars, and and I'm getting to your point, Diamond. There are black stars in WWE, in AEW that they could have pushed to this point better than they have done, like Will Hobbs. He's a powerhouse. They could do with another like the way how they're pushing Wardlow right now is the way how they should have and could have been pushing Will Hobbs, because Will Hobbs is a powerhouse. They don't have many powerhouses like that they've been pushing. And it would have been good if they had pushed somebody like Will Hobbs, because Will Hobbs could have been in the position that Wardlow's in right now if they had pushed him the same way, and they didn't, right? But putting Hobbs to one side for a minute, because like I said, we can't dwell on the past, innit? If they start pushing Hobbs from now, later on down the line, maybe end of the year, maybe midway down the year, he might actually be a credible title contender. But now they have Keith Lee. Now they have Jay Lethal, right? They're the only two I'm going to talk about for the moment, because they're the only two people I can think of, black wrestlers in AEW, that I can think of that are credible champions or title contenders, right? I would have said Leo Rush as well, but they didn't him, in my opinion, they did him kind of dirty, and now he's gone anyway. But you've got Keith Lee and you've got Jay Lethal, right? Keith Lee's in the middle of the screen for those that don't know. Jay Lethal's on the right, and Jade Cargill, who I mentioned before, is on the left. Alright. Jay Lethal was the ROH champion, world champion, and I think he was the Impact champion when he was in Impact. He's a very credible wrestler and a very credible champion. And the second that they hired him, in my head, I said straight away, they now have a credible black wrestler that the fans will know, because the fans are basically, they're the hardcore fans. So they're going to know a lot of people that are on the indies. They're going to know a lot of the people that wrestle around the world that aren't in the big leagues, so to speak. They're not in the TNAs. They're not in the WWEs. They might be in the Ring of Honors, but they're not in. They're probably more going to be in like New Japan or some of the other indies. Yeah, Jay Lethal came from that side, and people are gonna know who he is. People are gonna know that he's a big star on the indies, right? So now you brought in a guy who is credible as a black as a champion, who is also a black wrestler, right? They could also bring in Jonathan Gresham, but I don't know if they're gonna do that. He's the ROH champion for those that don't know, and they brought in this guy, and immediately I said they brought in a guy who's credible, right? I'm not saying put him in the title picture straight away, but I'm saying you've now got a guy who can essentially be a credible guy. That if you push him from the start, like you've been doing with Bryan Danielson, like you've been doing with CM Punk, like you've been doing with MJF, like you've been doing with Adam Cole, yeah, Adam Page, yeah. I'm not saying that he's on some of these guys' levels, but these are guys that have high ceilings and have are on a high level, and when they came in, you pushed them, yeah. Jay Lethal, it has a higher ceiling, is on a higher level, and it would have been good if you had pushed him when he came in because he is already championship material. So what do they do? First match in, he loses against Sammy Guevara. Now, I understand why. Sammy Guevara he needed to have a good title reign, needed to beat some people that were credible, and needed to have a nice title run for his TNT championship, right? I hear all that. And I also understand that they were bringing in some people, right, who were wrestlers, who weren't signed to contracts. They brought him in as like maybe a one-off to wrestle with Sammy Guevara for the TNT title, and then afterwards, or maybe before, they would sign a contract with AEW. That's fine. That's fantastic. But okay, yeah, you did it with Tony Nese. But let's be honest here, right? As good as Tony Nese is, and I'm not saying he wasn't, but as good as Tony Nese is, Jay Leaf was probably the bigger star. Jay Leaf was probably the better champion. And he's already championship material because we know this from all the work he's done in TNA, in Impact, in Ring of Honor, on the Indies. Yeah, Tony Nese has been good, don't get me wrong, but remember, Tony Nese has come from the wasteland of WWE. So people are probably going to see him as an ex-WWE guy, yeah, sure. As a fodder in a WWE as well, by the way. But they're going to see Jay Lethal was somebody who's credible. But instead of bringing him in and making him feel a bit more important and a bit more dominant, they brought him in. They made him lose to Sammy Guevara in a TNT title match. A good match, but they made him lose, right? Then all he's doing is having matches on Dark and Elevation, winning those matches, but no one really watches Dark and Elevation like that. That's why he's having all these matches when he's a top star who probably should be showcased a bit more on Dynamite. He doesn't come back onto Rampage until like weeks and weeks and weeks later. And when he does come back to Rampage, he's challenging Ricky Starks for a title that's not recognized for AEW to lose to him as well. Which again was a great match. And he made Ricky Starks look good in defeat. Well, he lost obviously. But again, he's a top guy. He couldn't be a top guy if they pushed him. And this is what I was saying, Diamond, when I said that that AEW haven't got a leg to stand on because they've got at least two stars. One of them I'm gonna get to in a minute. They've now got two stars that they can push to the moon, right? Two black stars that they can push to the moon, and they can essentially make AEW champion if they really wanted to because they are that good. If they chose to push them like that. But from what I've been seeing from Jay Lethal, they're not pushing him like that. They're not going to. I'm already seeing, right? My opinion, right? Might be a controversial one, might be an unpopular one. And this is probably gonna go on YouTube, so I might get hate for this. But as a wrestler, I personally think that Jay Lethal is the better wrestler out of him and John Moxley. John Moxley's got a great presence about him. He's a fantastic wrestler. I love John Moxley. I love his mannerisms. I love how he moves. I love pretty much everything about John Moxley, right? But as a wrestler, I feel like Jay Lethal is the better of the two. Now that might get me hate. But you see John Moxley is still going to get pushed to the moon. And I'm already seeing that John Moxley is getting pushed more. And I know he's been there for a while. But he's already getting pushed more than what Jay Lethal's been pushed in the short time he's been there. And again, John Moxley's already been AEW champion. And they don't really hand out that championship like that. They've only had, 4 champions? Chris Jericho, John Moxley, Kenny Omega, Adam Page. So it's not a title that they hand out willy nilly. And John Moxley's been there, and he's protected. Yeah, he's protected very well. And I'm not saying that they should just protect Jay Lethal like that, because he's a top guy, John Moxley, so he's expected to be protected. That was accidental, right? But I've already seen that Jay Lethal's not gonna get nowhere near that same kind of protection, and that's a shame because, like I said, I feel like as a wrestler, he is that damn good that he could have really shone in the division and really shone as a top guy. And it already looks like they're not going to give him that spotlight, and it's a shame because I do feel like he's championship material. Which brings me to the limitless one, Keith Lee. If they don't make Keith Lee AEW champion, yeah, I won't know what to tell you. Like the company's been going now for this will be the third year, right? If by the fourth year there is not a black champion, I'm gonna start to well, I'm already questioning the company, but I'm really gonna question them if there's not a black champion by the fourth year. Whether or not they bring in another black wrestler who is who either is credible or becomes credible, whether or not they push one of these guys, whether or not someone else comes from the lower ranks, like whether or not they make Hook champion. Like I know he's mixed race, but he's got black in him. But yeah, like if there's not a black champion by the fourth year, I'm gonna seriously question this company because I reckon there'll probably be another black champion in WWE by that point. Like, since we've been having this argument about diversity in AEW, Keith Lee wasn't a champion by this point. I don't think he was a champion before, but Big E's been champ. Bobby Lashley's been champ twice, I think. Yeah, twice. He's been champ twice because it was Big E that took it off him, and he took it off Brock. I'm trying to think of what other. I'm trying to think of what other black champions have been there. I mean, you can include Roman, I suppose, Samoan. It just baffles me, right? In general, that that AEW haven't tried to push a black wrestler more than what they have. I understand the argument. Not everybody can be on TV. Not everybody can be doing this, doing that, and I understand that, right? But like I said, there's certain wrestlers that have been pushed. There's certain wrestlers that they have sunk their energy into, and I don't feel like they've done that with some of the other black wrestlers that are there. And on top of that, and as I mentioned earlier, I can't even give you all the rundown for all the black wrestlers that are even there. You see, Private Party when AEW first came into fruition, right, and Private Party was there, they were not pushed, but they were hyped. Oh, their Private Party are really good wrestlers. Don't get me wrong, they are really good wrestlers, right? But they were never really pushed. Not like some of the other tag teams were pushed. And they're a good tag team. Before and after they joined Matt Hardy, they were a good tag team. And they genuinely could have been pushed to the moon, but they haven't been. As a tag team, they haven't been pushed. And it's a shame. Because they are really good wrestlers. Isaiah Cassidy and I forget the other guy's name. Mark Quinn. Scorpio Sky. He's another good wrestler. But he's not had a singles loss in a while. Now that's partially because he had a lot of tag matches. But he hasn't had many L's in singles competition. But he's still not really getting pushed. He had a valid argument that he's not really been getting TNT title shots. Now TNT title shots have been handed out to people who have had L's, have been handed out to people who haven't got flawless records. And Scorpio Sky has a reason, yeah, to have a gripe about not having a title shot for the TNT Championship. Because it's not like the AEW title where you need to have like a flawless record pretty much. And what's funny as well with Scorpio Sky's record, from what I know, I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure his record was better than Ethan Page's, but Ethan Page was the one that got the title shot against Cody. My hope is that the reason why they've done that is to protect Scorpio Sky's record from taking an L. But at the same time, that give him a shot at something. When was the last time he even wrestled? At this moment in time, he feels like Dan Lambert's hype man. How can you be the hype man to your hype man? How does that make sense? So I don't know what is happening in that regard as well. And then, like I said, I feel like Jay Lethal is already championship material, but he's not getting the quality, the opportunity. And as far as Keith Lee goes, right, I haven't said anything yet about that because he's only just turned up and he's only just had one match, right? He's probably gonna lose that ladder match. I forget what it's called. But that ladder match that's taking place, yeah, he's probably gonna lose it because Wardlow's probably gonna win it. So that's already gonna be an ed on his resume. Unless they swerve us and they make him win, which will be fun. But the story that they're trying to tell, it looks like Wardlow's gonna win that, which is fine by me. That's fine. But from then on, Keith Lee should be going on a tear. He should be getting dub after dub after dub. He should be doing what Miro was doing. Miro barely took an L. Right? When Miro broke away from Kip Sabian, he barely took a loss. I think he pretty much won every match up until him winning the TNT title. And only lost when he lost the TNT championship and when he lost against Daniel Bryan. They were the only two L's I remember him taking. They should be doing that to Keith Lee. Just win after win after win after win. If you don't want to have him go after the AEW title, that's fine. Give him the TNT title. I am fine with that. Let him boss the game. Right? Give him a title. Treat the TNT title like you treat the Intercontinental title in WWE. Give him the title and let him run with that and use it as a stepping stone to get to the AEW Championship. Rack up win after win after win and then go after the AEW title when you're done with that one. Give him so many wins that he's ranked number 2 whilst he still has the TNT title. And then let him take an L to lose the title, get some more dubs, and then go for the championship. I want him to be at least challenging for the title before the end of the year. And if he's not challenging, he needs to be challenging for the title at least by some point by early next year. And as I said, bearing in mind next year that the record is supposed to be removed or reset, he needs to be challenging for the title by next year at the latest. Right? Preferably winning it, but he needs to be challenging for it. I just hope that AEW see what they've got on their hands, isn't it? Like they've already got ready-made. They've got at least 3 ready-made black wrestlers. One that they've made themselves, which good for them. That Jade Cargill, they've made her themselves, right? Pushed her to the moon to the point where she feels credible. Still a bit green, but because of her presence, because of her aura, she feels credible as a champion. Built a whole tournament around her or for her, right? And whilst that tournament was going on, signed 2, well, lies. Whilst the tournament was going on, signed 1 credible black champion, or credible, 1 black wrestler who has been and is a credible champion, and another black wrestler after the tournament was done who is a credible wrestler, has been a fantastic champion. I just feel like AEW could really be putting money here with somebody like Keith Lee, or they could completely miss the boat. And it feels like they've either missed or are missing the boat at the moment with Jay Lethal. And Keith Lee already wasn't on Dynamite. the second Dynamite, he already wasn't on it. So I'm already getting worried. I know it's only his second Dynamite. I know that they've got a lot of wrestlers that they've got to cram in, and it's hard to just put a wrestler on every week, right? But hear what I'm saying to you. Wardlow is on every week. CM Punk is on pretty much every week. MJF is on pretty much every week. And I understand that they're in a feud, and I understand that Wardlow is a part of it, but still, they're on pretty much every week, right? Ain't seen Jay Lethal for a minute. I know he had the match with Ricky Starks, but in general though, his appearances are few and far between. He challenged Ricky Starks for the FTW championship, and they didn't wrestle for about 3 weeks. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, I want to see these guys on my screen, and so I'm hoping that Keith Lee. I don't know if he's on Rampage because I haven't checked, but even Hook's not on every Rampage. So it's very possible that Keith Lee could be on the next Dynamite, but I don't know what matches they've announced because it's still a week in advance. Rampage hasn't even happened yet. But it's going to be interesting. So we'll wait and see on that one. But hopefully AEW can start pushing some of these guys, making some of these guys look legit. Because I genuinely feel like they've got these 3 stars right here, right? I feel are championship material already. And even if you don't use these guys, like I said, I'm not even saying to you that they should put these guys. I know Jade's already a champion, but I'm not saying that they should put these guys in the title picture immediately. That's not even what I'm saying. Although they can go for the TNT title straight away, I'm not saying that these guys should be straight in the title picture. Right? They can rack up some wins, preferably on Dynamite where they're seen. But they can rack up some wins. They can be seen, be heard, be loved by the fans, be built up, and get some dubs. Right? And then when the time is right, you pull the trigger and you let them go for a title. They don't even have to win, but let them be in and around the title picture, innit? Because you never expect people like Kenny Omega to not be in the title picture. I know that they're not sometimes, but you never expect it. Yeah? If Kenny Omega came back tomorrow, you would think that he might go straight into the title picture because he's that good. And if he chose not to go in the title picture for like a month, 2 months, 3 months, and then out of the blue he went, oh, I want to go back in the title picture, you probably wouldn't think anything against it because he's so good. You might think that it's BS and he probably should qualify for something, but at the same time, you know that he's of that level, he's of that caliber. If they build some of these stars, they build your Lee Moriarty's, they build your Mark Quens and your Isaiah Cassidy's, your private parties, yeah, they build your Keith Lees and your Jay Lethals, who are already good enough, by the way, but they build them up to the point where everybody else knows that they're credible, right? The guys I mentioned before probably aren't credible, but they've done a good job in building people like Sammy Guevara that you'd think they could build those guys too. That hopefully, when these guys are built up, when they go for the title, no one bats an eyelid. No one thinks that it doesn't make sense. And if they step away from the title picture for a minute and then come back, again, people will still feel like they're credible because they've been built to the point where they look credible. They've built Wardlow to the point where if he went for the title tomorrow, I don't think many people would argue it too much. They might argue it because there's people ahead of him in the pecking order, but people probably wouldn't argue as much because he's been built to look like a beast. But if they had done that with Will Hobbs, it could have been him in that position right now. It's peak. It really is peak because I genuinely feel like the way how they were talking up Will Hobbs, he could have been the guy in that position. Granted, probably wouldn't have been the best idea to put him in the position as let's say MJF's like servant. That's basically what what Wardlow is. I think that would be a bit distasteful in this day and age. Your modern day Virgil, but just in general, being in the position of if you put him in the title picture, it won't look out of place. At the moment, if you put Will Hobbs in the title picture, he will look out of place, and that's to the discredit of AEW not building him to look credible. I hope that AEW looks at these stars, looks at what they have, and sees that these guys can be or should be at some point in the near future, in my opinion, at least challenging for titles. Yeah. Happy BHM.
Oh, it's the NXT champion!